A young woman visited her parents in a small town for the weekend and vanished under mysterious circumstances. Police officers and dozens of local residents immediately joined the search, and soon they uncovered something quite unexpected. When the full truth finally came to light, it caused a wave of outrage that lasted for years. Vanessa Marcotte was born on June 17, 1989, in the small American town of Leominster, Massachusetts. Despite her parents' divorce shortly after her birth, Vanessa's father remained actively involved in her life. He stayed in the same town, spending as much time with his daughter as possible. From a young age, he instilled in her a love for nature and sports. They often went hiking, skiing in the nearby mountains, and spent time at the beach by the ocean. Later, Vanessa developed a passion for yoga and running. She even participated in 2 major charity marathons. In addition to her athletic interests, Vanessa was serious about her studies, aiming to build a successful career. After high school, she attended Boston University, graduating with a degree in communications. Vanessa worked for several local companies before landing her dream job at Google, prompting her to move to New York City. She loved her new job and worked diligently to climb the career ladder. Despite her busy schedule, she regularly engaged in charity work, dedicating a significant portion of her free time to it. Vanessa also made frequent trips to visit her family in Princeton, a tiny town not far from her hometown. In early August 2016, at the age of 27, Vanessa traveled to Princeton to see her family and stayed at her mother's house. She spent quality time with her relatives, caught up with friends, and planned to return to New York on Sunday, August 7th. That morning, she stayed home with her mom and decided to go for a run in the afternoon. With several hours left before her bus, Vanessa had plenty of time. She chose a route near her mother's house, which, although lined with a few houses, was mostly shrouded by dense trees. Vanessa was expected to return in about half an hour, but she never came back. Her mother grew concerned, knowing that Vanessa still needed to pack and catch her bus. She called Vanessa, but there was no answer. An hour after she left for her run, Vanessa's phone started directing calls to voicemail, increasing her mother's worry. She kept trying to reach her daughter, but there was no response. Hoping for the best, she thought Vanessa might have met up with some friends. However, as time passed and Vanessa remained unreachable, her mother contacted their relatives, none of whom had seen her. Fearing something bad had happened, Vanessa's mother decided to call the police. Officers spoke with her and began searching along the route Vanessa had taken for her run. Her relatives and friends joined the search, hoping to find her before her bus to New York left at 5:30 p.m. When the bus departed without her, it confirmed everyone's worst fears. Something serious must have occurred. Vanessa was extremely responsible with her job and would never miss her last bus without a good reason. The search continued for several hours. The local police department quickly requested assistance from the state police, who sent several officers, including K-9 units. Vanessa's father took an active role in the search, distraught over the situation. At one point, the police had to ask him to return home as his distress was affecting the other search participants. Around 8:20 p.m., one of the search teams, accompanied by dogs, ventured deeper into the forest, about a kilometer from Vanessa's mother's house. The dogs led the officers in a specific direction, and soon they discovered a human body on the ground. Despite the numerous abrasions on the body, the police immediately identified it as Vanessa Marcotte. Her clothing was completely missing, except for a single sneaker lying nearby. In addition to the abrasions, the body showed clear signs of burns, and the sneaker found was partially charred. From this, investigators speculated that the perpetrator might have tried to dispose of the body and evidence by fire, but failed. They also suspected that Vanessa had been assaulted, possibly providing a motive for the unknown killer. Detectives soon realized that in addition to Vanessa's clothes, her headphones and smartphone were also missing. It was assumed that the perpetrator had taken these items. The body was handed over to medical examiners for further investigation, and the police began searching for the culprit. The incident was a massive shock for the residents of Princeton, a small town considered very safe, where the last murder occurred over 30 years ago. Upon learning about Vanessa's murder and the gruesome details, the town fell into a state of panic. Residents feared that the killer might be one of them and worried that he could strike again. Medical experts determined that the cause of death was strangulation. Vanessa also suffered numerous injuries, some indicating that she had fought back against her assailant. Skin particles were found under her nails, and DNA analysis revealed they belonged to an unknown male. Investigators immediately entered his DNA profile into the FBI's database, but no matches were found. Nonetheless, this became a crucial piece of evidence for the police. They could now compare the DNA samples of suspects with this profile, and also knew the perpetrator likely had scratches on his body, which could help in identifying him. Regarding the burns, experts found traces of a flammable substance and determined it was gasoline. The perpetrator likely tried using it to destroy evidence and the body. While medical experts couldn't definitively confirm if Vanessa had been assaulted, detectives continued to consider this as a primary motive. They also didn't rule out the possibility that the perpetrator might have known Vanessa and had personal motives. Detectives focused all their efforts on finding the killer and first turned to the public for help. Princeton's population was just over 3,000, and many residents knew each other, so the police believed someone might have valuable information. They also asked people to stay vigilant and report any men with fresh scratches. Soon, a witness came forward. He had been driving along that very road on the day of the murder, around 12:45 p.m. He saw a dark SUV with its hood up on the roadside and a man of Latino descent, medium height and solid build, aged between 20 and 30, standing nearby. The witness didn't remember any distinct facial features as he drove by rather quickly. The only thing he noticed was that the man had short hair or was completely bald. An hour and a half later, the witness passed by the same road, and the SUV was still there. But this time the hood was down. All the windows were closed, and the man was nowhere to be seen. The witness hadn't thought much of it at the time, but after hearing the news of Vanessa's murder, he realized he might have seen the perpetrator. Another witness reported seeing Vanessa that day, heading toward the road. He mentioned a car driving behind her, which initially passed by, but then turned around and followed her again. Unfortunately, this witness couldn't see the license plate or remember other details about the car. Soon, detectives received another lead. Another witness, who worked at a ski resort 10 minutes away from Princeton, noticed a suspicious man with scratches on his face. This man was caught on a surveillance camera, and the witness handed over the footage to the police. Thanks to the footage, the police quickly identified the man. They started investigating his potential involvement, but soon concluded he was unlikely to be the killer. DNA analysis later confirmed this, and the man was removed from the list of suspects. Over the next few weeks, the police received over 1,000 leads, some quite promising. However, each lead ended in a dead end, leaving them no closer to catching the perpetrator. Detectives interviewed local residents and people from neighboring towns and examined owners of dark-colored SUVs, but nothing came of it. Vanessa's relatives couldn't sit idly by. They posted flyers about the case in nearby towns and launched a website with contact information for the detectives. Despite the flood of tips and community engagement, each passing week saw investigators losing hope of apprehending the criminal. They checked hundreds of men in the area and interviewed Vanessa's acquaintances, but every effort led nowhere. Several FBI profilers analyzed the case and concluded that the assailant likely did not know Vanessa and had acted spontaneously. They speculated he might have driven by, seen her, and decided to assault her. They believed the perpetrator lived in Princeton or nearby towns or visited Princeton regularly, perhaps for work or to see relatives. Given the brutality of the attack, the profilers suggested he might be a sociopath, making him harder to identify. Sociopaths feel no guilt and are skilled liars, so the killer could have behaved normally right after the murder, drawing no attention to himself. Over the following months, despite persistent efforts by local police, the case stagnated, and identifying the criminal seemed increasingly unlikely. Everything changed 9 months after the murder in an unexpected way. In April 2017, a state police patrolman was driving through Worcester, 30 kilometers from Princeton. He saw a black SUV driven by a Latino man with short hair. Aware of Vanessa's case, the officer immediately recalled that the driver's appearance and vehicle matched witness descriptions. He quickly jotted down the license plate number on his hand while the car was still in sight. Back at the station, he ran the plates and found the vehicle was registered to 31-year-old Angelo Ortiz. He passed this information to the investigators. Ortiz had no criminal history and had lived in Worcester with his girlfriend and their 3 children for less than a year. Officers went to his home to request a DNA sample. They faced a challenge when Ortiz, who spoke little English, answered the door. Fortunately, one officer was fluent in Spanish, and Ortiz's girlfriend translated for him. Ortiz provided a DNA sample, which was sent to the lab. While waiting for the results, detectives dug deeper into Ortiz's background. They discovered he worked delivering packages to various post offices in the area, suggesting he knew the region well and often visited towns like Princeton. They also requested his phone's location data and found something intriguing. Despite the provider only offering approximate data, it showed Ortiz was in Princeton during the time of Vanessa's attack, specifically in the area where her body was found. Further investigation revealed that after the murder, Ortiz made a purchase at a nearby gas station, filling a small canister with $5 worth of gasoline, given the traces of gasoline found on Vanessa's body. This pointed strongly to Ortiz's involvement. Soon, the lab results confirmed his DNA matched the skin particles under Vanessa's nails. With this evidence, police arrested Ortiz. He denied any wrongdoing, so the case went to court. Despite the compelling DNA and location evidence, an unexpected problem arose. Ortiz's lawyers claimed the police obtained his DNA sample illegally, arguing the language barrier prevented him from understanding what was happening and consenting to the DNA collection. Ortiz insisted he signed a document he couldn't understand and gave the DNA sample only because his girlfriend told him to. This became a significant issue for the prosecution. Although they had a definitive DNA match, meeting the defense's demands could jeopardize the case, potentially leading to Ortiz's release. After lengthy deliberation, the judge ruled to keep the DNA evidence. Even so, Ortiz maintained his innocence, and the trial preparation dragged on for years. Throughout this time, Ortiz remained in jail, unable to pay the $10 million bail. The trial took over 6 years to commence due to various delays, prolonging the agony for Vanessa's family, who had already suffered an immense loss. During this period, investigators gathered more damning information against Ortiz. Despite living in the town for less than a year, Ortiz had earned a bad reputation. Several women neighbors described him as extremely unpleasant, frequently making lewd comments about them, causing them to fear his presence. A former Princeton post office employee shared more disturbing details. She had to interact with Ortiz regularly due to his deliveries and recounted his daily inappropriate comments towards her and other female staff, thinking she didn't understand Spanish. She felt uneasy every time he visited and feared him. This woman often walked to work along the same route Vanessa jogged, and after learning about Vanessa's death, she couldn't continue living in the town. Ultimately, the prosecution offered Ortiz a plea deal, allowing a chance of release in old age, as he otherwise faced life imprisonment.